So this is just a quick video just to show you how I use diagnostic ultrasound in my practice to help look at hand and wrist conditions. So as many of you may know, I'm a MSK physiotherapist, but I'm also a sonographer as well. And to me, those two skills are a match made in heaven. The addition of ultrasound has really taken my MSK practice to the next level, and I use it pretty much every day to help diagnose MSK problems. So this video may be of use to you if you're a patient with a hand and wrist condition, just to see how we can use ultrasound to help with diagnosis, but it may also be helpful for MSK clinician colleagues who maybe have an interest or thinking that ultrasound may be of helpful to them in their practice, and maybe thinking about dipping their toe into the world of ultrasound. And if so, I will put some links into the description to some UK-based training providers that I can highly recommend. So, like I said, I use ultrasound on almost a daily basis, not just for hand and wrist, but for all areas of the body. You can view most of the superficial areas of most peripheral joints. You can look at tendons, muscles, nerves, all sorts of different soft tissues, and it can be really useful. So, particularly in point of care ultrasound, meaning that the patient comes in and you assess them as you'd normally do, you take a full history, you examine them, and then you might have a few different diagnoses in mind, but you're not quite sure. Well, then with ultrasound, you can immediately pop the probe on those tissues, and that will help you perhaps to come up with the definitive diagnosis so that you can then start treatment much earlier, which is beneficial for everyone. You can also use it for intervention, so I use it a lot for ultrasound guided injections and other procedures, and that can be really helpful in accuracy of that injection technique. So as technology improves, image quality gets better, machines get smaller and more portable, and particularly now there's some of the handheld devices producing some fantastic images, and they're so quick and easy to use because they've got the potential really to become the modern day stethoscope of the MSK clinician. And so hopefully you'll be able to see how valuable that can be in this short video today. So let's get cracking with the hand and the wrist. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run the probe up and down the back of the wrist and look for a prominent bony tubercle called Lister's tubercle, which is that raised bony area you can see there just in the middle of the screen, because I know that that separates the extensor compartment 2 tendons, which are those two there, which are extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis, from the extensor compartment 3 tendon, which is extensor pollicis longus just there. So once I've found that orientation, I generally slide it past the extensor compartment 2 tendons and onto the thumb side of the wrist, where I'm looking for the 2 tendons of extensor compartment 1, which are those 2 tendons there, which are abductor pollicis longus, which is a larger one of the two, and extensor pollicis brevis, which is the smaller one of the two just next door. So these tendons are the ones that are commonly involved in de Quervain's tenosynovitis, which is a very common condition that we see. And if it was a synovitis, then what you'd see, a tenosynovitis rather, is you'd see a black halo of fluid around the tendons. Now, there's a tiny little bit of fluid around my tendons there, which is normal. But in a tenosynovitis, there'd be a much larger area of fluid enveloping either one or both of the tendons, and you could see that quite nicely. You can also have a look in long view. So if I spin the probe, to the side view, we can now see the extensor compartment 1 tendons, APL and EPB in long view. You can see them as they come down following the contour of the radius. That's the radial styloid just falling off there, and then we can see the tendons there quite nicely. The area where they're normally affected by de Quervain's is just distal to the radial styloid. I need a bit of extra gel on. Just there, and you'll normally see the tendon is thickened and there might be some fluid in the tendon sheath, but as you can see, mine is absolutely fine there. I'm just wiggling my thumb around there. You can see the tendon sliding quite nicely. So that's APL and EPB and de Quervain's tenosynovitis. The other thing that you can do is I can slide upwards, follow these 2 tendons upwards, and you'll see them, they will cross over See them crossing over a set of underlying tendons there. Well, the ones they're crossing over are those extensor carpi radialis brevis and longus tendons I mentioned before. So that's extensor compartment 1 crossing over extensor compartment 2. So this is the area where intersection syndrome develops, which is a friction syndrome between these two extensor compartments. And if there was an intersection syndrome, I might see a large area of fluid between those two sets of tendons there. Okay, so dropping back down again onto Lister's tubercle. So those are the extensor compartment 2 tendons there, ECRL and ECRB. I mentioned before that little one there right next to Lister's tubercle is extensor pollicis longus. Just try and get that a bit brighter there. You can see it moving as I move my thumb. And then the large group of tendons there sat together on the back of the wrist is extensor digitorum, so that's extensor compartment 4. So you'll see 4 distinct tendons in that area, as well as extensor indicis as well. And you can also see these tendons in long view again, quite clearly, and that's quite a nice view to check out for subtle thickenings and fluid collections in that tendon sheath. So that's extensor compartment 4. Extensor compartment 5 is extensor digiti minimi, which is the little tendon, just trying to get it bright for you, just there, little tendon sat in the middle of the screen there. It kind of just sits over the top of the distal radio-ulnar joint, and as I wiggle my little finger, you just see it sort of moving there. So that's extensor digiti minimi. Again, you can just see it there sat over the joint there that you can see is the distal radio-ulnar joint. And then around the corner, we've got the big tendon there, which is extensor carpi ulnaris, ECU. So that's extensor compartment 6, and that sits in that little cleft just there on the ulnar side of the wrist. So that's all 6 extensor tendons. You can also see the wrist joint quite nicely. So here we can see the end of the radius dropping off there, and we can see the main radiocarpal joint there. So that's just dropping off. You can see the lunate on the end of the radius, and then we've got the mid-carpal joint there in the middle of the screen, and then dropping down onto the carpometacarpal joints. And then we can look at each of the individual joints in the finger without any issue at all. There's the middle finger PIP joint. Look at that moving there. And the DIP joint there. Moving over to the palmar side of the wrist, we can have a look at the carpal tunnel. So the carpal tunnel area is in the middle of the screen there. Tendon over on the thumb side is flexor carpi radialis, and then we've got the carpal tunnel contents there, and then there's another tendon over this side just there on the middle of the screen, which is flexor carpi ulnaris. That's the ulnar artery there throbbing away. And then the middle of the screen there. So the contents of the carpal tunnel are basically 9 tendons. We've got 4 FDP and 4 FDS tendons, and then we've also got the one down at the bottom there, which is flexor pollicis longus wiggling around. The superficial group there are FDS. You see them wiggling as I move my fingers, and the deeper group down at the bottom there are FDP tendons. And the median nerve, all these tendons will run a fairly true course as I scan up and down. But the median nerve, the way you can tell the median nerve from the tendons is that it comes from deep. So it comes from deep, I'm just highlighting it there. And it comes upwards, upwards, upwards. And you'll see it in the middle of the screen just there. And then it goes deep again when it gets into the palm. So there we go, you can see it just there. And it comes up just there. That's at the height of the carpal tunnel there as it comes superficial, and it goes deep again into the palm. I'm just losing that image because I haven't got quite so much gel in my palm. I'll try and get the nerve nice and bright for you. just about there, yeah. So that's the median nerve looking good there. Okay, other things that we can see. Thumb CMC joint, quite common, do a lot of image guided injections with this. So that's the thumb metacarpal there, that's it dropping off there, the joint there, so I wiggle my thumb, you'll see the joint, the gap there, which is the CMC joint, a little bit of fluid in that gap, and it looks like a little bit of an osteophyte there, doesn't there? Just on the trapezium side, so looks like I've got a touch of osteoarthritis in there, which of course is not uncommon. So being able to see the joint there makes it so much easier to drop an injection in. The next joint down there is the STT joint, the one that also looks a bit gnarly. Obviously got some arthritic changes there. And then we move on up to the wrist joint at the end there. So that's, well, the radioscaphoid joint rather. So yeah, so, oh, the other thing that we can see is trigger fingers or flexor tendons. So that's the flexor tendon there, the middle finger. See it sliding there as I move my finger. Really nice view of the flexor tendon. So that's the place, the common place where you get trigger finger, because the A1 pulley is just sat over the top, the superficial side of the flexor tendon at the level of the MCP joint. And you can just see it there as that little black line. It's not very impressive, is it, the A1 pulley? But it is there, just highlighted. And if that was triggering, generally the pulley tends to be a bit thickened, and the tendon also tends to be a bit thickened around that area. But there's obviously no sign of triggering with my lovely looking flexor tendon there. Okay, so I hope that's given you some ideas as to how ultrasound can be so helpful around the hand and wrist to see all the individual tendons, a lot of the superficial aspects of the joints, the nerves, various other soft tissues, and that really is just scratching the surface what I've shown today. So yeah, it's a really invaluable tool and something that I use every single day in my clinical practice. So I hope that's been of value. Don't forget to check out the links in the description to some training courses in the UK if you are interested in starting to learn this really valuable skill. So thanks very much for watching, and until the next one, take care and bye for now.